This is the Kern Valley Healthcare District Board of Directors meeting. It's Monday, August 8th, 2022, and we're called to order. First order of business is to approve the agenda. I know of no changes the staff is asking for. Does anybody else have any changes that they want to the agenda?
I don't have any.
Okay.
No.
All right, then the agenda is approved and we'll go to flag salute. And Dave, could you lead us in a flag salute today? Oh, but you're on mute.
Okay, here we go.
There we go. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
to
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dave. And Mark, are you on? I don't see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hiding.
There you are.
I was standing for the flag salute, actually.
Thank you. I don't know what to do with that. You know, do you stand and then have the middle of your body shown on the camera, or do you just sit here?
I tried to step out of the view of the camera, but apparently I'm wider than that.
Would you mind giving our invocation today?
Absolutely. For those of you who wish to join me, Heavenly Father, we're just grateful that we have this opportunity to meet as a board and as a support of the Kern Valley Healthcare District Board of Directors. We ask that you kind of help guide us and give us your wisdom through our decision making, just to help support the district and help it further the cause to provide healthcare in the community. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, our mission statement is here on the agenda for everyone to review themselves. And item C on the agenda is public comment. And this portion of the meeting is reserved for members of the public to address this board on matters that are under our jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. All right, do we have any member of the public wishing to be heard? Okay, I don't see or hear anything. So we will move on to the consent agenda. All the items on the consent agenda are considered non-controversial and routine by staff. And the board will approve these all in one motion unless a member of the board or any member of the public would like an item pulled from the consent agenda where it can be discussed individually. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll motion as such, Ross.
I'll second. Oh,
That's all right. You can have it, Catherine.
oh, yay. Yes.
Okay. And
Okay, Ross,
did-
can I make a comment?
Gene, did you want something pulled? I'm sorry.
I'm just thinking about oh no, that's gonna be, I'm sorry, that's something that Carrie's got a program that we're gonna vote for separately. I'm sorry. It's in a different spot.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have any item from the consent agenda that they want pulled?
Gene, that's
Okay.
in the consent agenda, I believe, so.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
so recent, okay, Carrie, you know, for the past 3 years, I've been asking.
Hey,
Ken-
no, we got to get back up and
Okay.
amend the motion if we want to pull it. A point of order, I'm sorry.
Which item is it, Gene? Is it 17 or 18?
Let me look on here,
17.
17.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and pull item 17 from the consent agenda, and then we'll discuss that after we
Okay,
approve that the rest of the items.
okay, thank you.
So we have a motion.
I'll amend my motion to remove item 17 as discussed.
Thank you, Fred. Catherine, are you okay with that as a seconder?
I am. I second it with the
Okay.
change.
All right. John, your vote?
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
Jean,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and just tackle that item 17 right now. So go ahead, Jean. You had questions about it.
Okay, all right. I've had questions, and Ross, you were at the meeting 3 years ago. Whenever we were in that little, where you're at now, or where they are in the other room, because it was being used. And ever since I've been asking Tim to show us a chart of what our IT is. It seems like Carrie, bless your heart, and I have total confidence in you. However, every meeting Carrie's getting, or every board meeting, it seems like he's paying. Now, I understand we need security and we need everything, but we also need to know what we're doing. Now, he says, well, it's in the budget. Well, there's a bunch of money in budget. Should it be there? But we need to understand what the IT is and how much we're spending on it. And maybe we should have an audit of it.
So is
Okay,
there-
just so our referral to staff is going to be crystal clear, what is it specifically that you want to see?
Okay, Dave, you've been saying for a few meetings now, you were gonna do something. Now, nobody does. Everybody says, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. If I sound like Tim, I'm sorry, but I'm working on it.
Well, that's a true statement. Barbara and I had a discussion this last week. She's been on vacation. I've had some time off. We clearly could make it a higher priority than I've made it so far. The reason why I volunteered to do it, Gene, is because I'm in total agreement with your sentiments that we want to create the right kind of decision-making environment for the board to approve these line items one at a time. You need to understand the right context, how much we've spent already, what's the plan, how much more is going to be spent in the future, what percentage of the total budget is that, how does that compare to industry averages, what types of constraints does it put on us when we keep approving all these IT projects. So all those are important board issues that I think you rightfully have tried to escalate, and I like that. That's why I agreed to let's give the board more information than they have up till now, as you get these decisions to make month by month, that we try to create a little better context for you. I just haven't gotten there to completely put all that together.
Okay, Dave, if you're working on it, now it's been a long time and I'm sort of patient, but then I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve. We need what he's asking for. But
Yep.
As a whole, are we in good shape? We don't know.
Mhm.
So but
Right now, we're in good shape because we haven't, on a relative basis, we haven't blown our budget and spent a lot of money and committed a lot of future money. The potential is there. A lot of hospitals are doing it right now. They're spending huge chunks of their percentage of their operating expenses on IT. And sometimes it's the right decision, but oftentimes it's more than they could really afford. So I'm really glad that at least we have one board member is sensitive to the fact that the potential is there for boards to make a mistake and spending money on IT.
okay, then as long as we're working on it, I'll make a motion that we approve, if I can now, Russ.
Go ahead, Gene. That's fine.
Line 17.
And I'll second Ross.
Thank you, John. Any discussion on this item, on the specific purchase, this capital expenditure? Okay, then Gene, your vote.
Yes,
Catherine,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Now, on the referral to staff on basically building us a flow chart or some kind of comprehensive diagram, or I don't know what the product is going to end up looking like, but Dave, what's a reasonable time frame to bring that back to the board?
Well, now that I can see that this continues to be a high priority, at least for one board member, I can take the time this month and present it next finance committee.
Okay, terrific.
Dave, it's been 3 years now, and so we're patient, but we need to do it. So if don't put anything aside that's important.
All right, it looks like, based on what I have on my plate right now, it looks like I should be able to get to it this month. In the event I don't, I'll go through a long explanation on what happened in between now and then that caused my priorities to change, but I will try to get it done.
Thank you very much, Kay. Russ, is that's okay with me? If he's gonna try, if he can't, then next month he'll pick it up.
All right, that sounds good. It sounds like a reasonable approach. Thank you. Okay, then that brings us to item E on the agenda, which is reports. And we'll start with our foundation report. Is that you,
Okay,
Debbie?
that's me. So as you know, River Rhythms has started. We had a fairly good turnout last Friday. We had some vendors there. Our next band is Angels Roost, and they're kind of a Southern rock outlaw country type, and they will be there Friday. The following Friday is Sam Carey. It's a national recording artist. And then the last one is Station Street, which is a Southern California favorite band, and they're actually located out of Ridgecrest. So that's coming up. On September 10th, we have a nonprofit expo. We've got 13 nonprofits signed up for that so far. And we're also putting together a fraud workshop in your everyday life to give that information out at the same time. September 16th, of course, is going to be the health fair, and then Crab Fest is September 17th. We do have tickets available now. They are $60 a person. If you'd like a table, $500. And I think that's my report. Oh, yes, that's my report for the foundation.
Thanks, Debbie. Questions for Debbie?
Debbie, if you do a table, is that for a certain amount of people?
6. You get 6 tickets and 2 bottles of wine or 2 bottles of sparkling cider.
Okay, thank you.
Wine sounds better than cider.
Do you want me to go ahead and do the auxiliary?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the auxiliary average, I don't have the exact figure, but they averaged about $1,000 per day for the past month. And they're open 12 days, so that's close to or maybe a little over $12,000. On August 17th will be our first membership meeting back from the summer vacation. And Cindy Rupert is actually going to be the liaison through the end of the year. Another member has stepped up and will take over on in 2023. And that's my report.
Fantastic.
Questions? Go ahead.
No, saying that's good news. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Debbie. Okay, item 3 is our medical staff report. Dr. Finstead?
Thank you, Ross. The Antibiotic Stewardship Committee met on July 12th. This was the second regular meeting of this committee with Dr. Phil Lazard, our infectious disease specialist, present by Zoom. They reviewed and approved 3 policies. In particular, one of them was an extended infusion of Zosyn. So we're changing the way we're giving this antibiotic to rather than giving it all at one time, to spread it out over 4 hours to help improve the antibiotic's ability to get rid of the bacteria, basically. Also, they recommended we retire one policy that we had developed in the early part of the pharmacy board review that was regarding testing patients for penicillin allergy. That's just something we're not ready to move forward with, and so that policy was retired for the time being. In addition, they reviewed the regular reports, so including the antibiogram and antibiotic usage in the acute care and SNF, along with hospital-associated infections. The Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee met on July 13th and discussed COVID-related issues, also discussed the recent plan of corrections. And in addition to that, reviewed and approved 8 policies, 3 of which were sent back for further work. The policies are mostly regarding pharmacy-related issues around cleaning around the sterile hood, issues regarding Mesa Clinical Pharmacy, regarding just technical aspects of the pharmacy function. In addition, we reviewed reports regarding blood usage, blood culture analysis, the medication error reduction program report, along with the temperature alert log, and also reviewed the ongoing monthly procedural sedation review. In addition to that, or excuse me, then the medical executive committee met on July 19th. We approved the policies as previously mentioned. We discussed infectious disease clinical privilege forms. With Dr. Phil Lizardo on staff, his position really is of an administrative position. He's giving advice to the committee, but he is not involved in patient care. So he does not have clinical privileges to see patients here, which is exactly what he wants and is fine with Dr. Gross. We reviewed the results of the mock survey that would affect the medical staff office. We reviewed the plan of corrections from the recent pharmacy survey. Since that has been completed, that item will be removed from the executive committee agenda. And then we reviewed regular reports, including medication shortages and procedural sedation. And then finally, the Infection Control Committee met on August 1st, reviewed and approved a policy regarding housekeeping and disinfection of the inpatient pharmacy, discussed COVID-related issues and issues related to CDPH regarding this. Also, they discussed a new cleaning product that SNF would like to purchase. We will be getting more information regarding that. And then finally, they reviewed their regular reports, including hospital-acquired infections, blood culture review, hand hygiene, MRSA surveillance, among other things. And that's the end of my report, unless there are any questions.
Dr. Finstead. Board members have questions?
No
No, sir.
questions. Thank you.
Good,
You're
thank you.
Sounds like you're pretty busy and we're getting our money's worth.
Well, yeah, I mean, particularly over the past, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, there have been more policies coming through, working their way through medical staff committees, things. So the agendas have been a little bit longer. Things may taper off, and they might not. We just
Thank you so much for what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks, Dr.
It's not just me; it's a whole team of people.
Thank you. Thanks for leading that group.
All right.
Okay, then we will move on to Chief Executive Officer report. Who's
I
giving?
have a report to give for in his stead.
Thank you, Mark.
You bet. So he's got a list of things for me to talk about. So I will just go down the checklist. First of all, the pharmacy drug pickup program. This is something that we've been working on with SUDA regarding the development of a drug pickup service for our retail pharmacy. In other words, the parking lot out there, patients can just drive up, pick up their meds. We can take them out there. So they're working on that. The other thing is we're exploring a way to get this off the ground faster through a manual process, but SUDA will be reporting to the board her ideas moving forward. This is a precursor to her desired goal of having a pharmacy delivery service that will take a patient's medications to their home. This will need to wait until our new computer system is up and running, hopefully by the end of this year. You guys just in the consent agenda approved their new computer system, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's that retail pharmacy software. Next thing on the agenda was an employee retention credit. I'm going to let Dave talk about that when he gives his report. So I'll just move on past that.
Okay.
The rural emergency hospital designation. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to some of the California CMS changes that may be coming down so CMS is trying to address a means to allow rural hospitals to continue to provide care to their communities without the expense of providing and staffing acute care services. This is hoped to help keep many rural hospitals from closing their doors due to poor financial performance. CMS has issued preliminary conditions of participation for the new hospital model, but there is still much detail to be developed. One point that was presented was that California still has not approved this model for their state. Tim said he will present more on this in future meetings, because I have no answers to questions.
Because I have questions.
Yeah, you do.
All right. The CT scanner, we've been having difficulties with maintaining the air conditioning system outside in that trailer. They've rebuilt it a couple of times, and it's really at a point where it needs to be replaced. We were down for a period of days over a weekend, I think last weekend, not this past, but the previous weekend, we were down to ambulance traffic because of the problems with the CT scanner and the fact that it was too hot to manage or do CTs in there. So anyway, they're working on getting a new one. Do we have any information? Is Bob there in the meeting? He's
I
not.
spoke with Tim this morning about it actually, and
Okay.
they've identified a unit and have purchased it.
Okay.
So we're getting a new air conditioner to replace that existing one in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $10,000. I don't have the exact figure.
That's certainly worth it, though. That's about 3 CT scans, I think, over the weekend.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Tim's thinking on it was we can't be without the CT scan and
Exactly.
provide good customer care and good patient care. And you know, it's the cheapest alternative for the longest amount of time.
Correct. So CMS SNF survey. Tim says he's pleased to report that during a recent visit from CDPH, we were informed that CMS has decided that we will not be surveyed this year in the skilled nursing facility. This was due to the quality of care performed in the unit. This was great news for the staff and underscores the efforts they make in caring for our residents. All the preparation that went into getting the unit ready for survey was put to good use.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I think we should see, you know, glitter and confetti can appear all over the screen, because has that ever happened before?
Not to us.
Yeah, you're doing such a good job. We're not going to survey you this year.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because we went to a 4-star, went to 4 stars in that service, and they knew how much work we put into the pharmacy thing, and CDPH is all confined to that one space down there in Bakersfield. So they kind of know what we went through with the other thing. And so they were kind of, I think, not to mention all the good work they do over there. So.
Can I make a comment, Russ? Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
please.
I'm a little familiar with CMS, and I had a little contact with them. They said primarily it's because of our chairman of the board.
Ah, that's what it is. Well, I take no credit for it whatsoever. Our staff is doing an incredible job.
Mark, I didn't mind to shut you up, Mark.
Which CMS are you referring to, Gene? Okay, so moving on, physician recruitment for the Mountain View Health Center. I think because Greg Davis is in the room, he can report on the search for a provider for across the street.
Sure. So we had our first on-site interview. I've interviewed quite a few people virtually. This was the first on-site interview as a physician. Her name is Dr. Solms, Dr. Kenya Solms. She's a third-year resident in Pennsylvania right now. So she came out with her husband and had a tour of the clinic, tour of the community. We went upriver, spent some time up there. Had dinner with Tim and Dr. Mongar. So it was a very good visit, and we're looking at with Scott's help, we're looking at doing an offer where we would hire this as a potentially as a W-2 employee. So all of the candidates that we've found don't want the existing structure that we have with our other physicians. So this is a new thing for us. So it's kind of exciting. So I'll forward the, her final offer to her this week. So keep our fingers crossed, but we'll keep looking.
All right, thanks, Greg. Are there any questions about, I know there's plenty of questions, but I'm not sure I can answer them. If you have questions, I'll try.
But what about if she can be a W-2 member and get off from a 1099? Why don't you make the board members W-2s?
Then we can't be employees and still be board members.
Thank you.
We'd all have to resign.
We could ask for a stipend raise. Mark, I did have one quick question.
Sure.
Let me look here real quick, because I was supposed to go to the meeting that Tim had with the VA. I know he couldn't be there, but I think you were there, and I was still stuck in Atlanta, Georgia for an extra day. Was that a pretty productive meeting? It sounded like it was, like they wanted to work with us.
With which one are we talking about, John?
The veterans.
Oh, yeah. They're very interested in working with us. Greg could also speak to that. It would be through the rural health clinic, most of that work. So Greg, you're on again.
Which one was that? I couldn't hear the
The
first
VA, the meeting with the VA that we had.
It was a good meeting, and we have follow-up meetings scheduled, and we've offered to help in any way that we can, whether it's cooperation with providing physical space for them to use, our mobile clinic, expanded services in the clinic. We talked about some of the concerns that we had with our existing the existing structure and the ability to get things authorized for the veterans. So they understood that, and they're working on making improvements there.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I know that was a component in our strategic plan that we did back in 2020. So glad it's moving along quite well. I'll try to make the next meeting with them. Thank you.
All right, Mark. Any other questions for Mark? For the CEO report? Okay, then we'll move on to the Chief Nursing Officer report. Mark Gordon.
Okay, CNO report. COVID numbers in the month of July were 5.7%. And the trend remains in August. We're about 5.1%. So we have several staff members out with COVID during this time. So I think we don't need to discuss it any further. I think we're okay with staffing because most of those are not in any one department, so to speak. We were concerned with a couple of weeks ago when there were two people out with COVID from a department of 4. So that kind of puts a damper on things, but I think we managed to make it through that. The transportation service is currently providing 7 or 8 rides a day to various appointments. That's 5 days a week. I submitted a request to extend our funding past the end of August, as well as granting new monies for providing a service to Bakersfield for Valley residents with appointments down the canyon. I have that proposal. I can go through it if you'd like. I have 4 major tasks that I've identified. The first one was to increase the salary range of that individual, those drivers, and that they would cover. And then major task number 2 was to purchase another vehicle, probably a 6 or 8 passenger van that could actually do a service to Bakersfield, to appointments in Bakersfield. I'm not sure how that's going to look just yet, to make sure, because you can't be in the same place or too many different places at one time, obviously. So we're still kind of working out demographics on that, but I have asked them to cover that cost. Third thing is reimbursement for fuel, and we'll see if they're willing to cover that. They haven't been doing that yet, so we'll see what happens. And then finally, the retail pharmacy is researching a medication delivery service, which would allow our drivers to carry prescriptions to the patient's homes instead of picking the patient up at home, driving them to the pharmacy and then back home. So we'll see how that goes. Like I said, I'm waiting to hear back. Everything I've heard from Kern Health Systems, their direction is trying to provide a service for all of their members like this. And so it sounds like they're going to do that. And this grant request was for substantially more money than I asked for in the original grant. So we'll see what happens. And Dave, if you want me to later on, I can share this with you as well. Next thing I want to talk about is the retention and recruitment of staff. They're a focus. Various incentives are being discussed, as you well know, about the that other thing I mentioned earlier, the employee retention credit. Dave will talk about that a little later. Because these traveling agencies are offering financial incentives and trying to attract people away from our facility by bigger dollars, we're just trying to come up with, and this is on the heels of the pandemic. I noticed that in the travel registries, their numbers are coming down to a certain extent, but now with another surge, they've kind of stopped coming down, and they're hovering at a certain dollar figure that is, frankly, it's probably not going to bode well for small facilities like ours if we continue to have to use a service like a travel registry. So, and then finally, our meeting with the Kern County Behavioral Health Leadership was supposed to happen. That meeting got postponed. So Tanya Mann is researching when, oh gosh, what's her name? Dr. Kuwahara, when she can meet again. They want to come up here and see our hospital so they know kind of what we're dealing with when it comes to behavioral health transfers. So we're excited to entertain them and show them our facility. And we'll see when that's going to happen, but I don't have any further information on that right now. And that's the end of my report.
Questions or comments from Art?
I got a question, Mark. I heard on the news where the IGT funds could be compromised in the future if we don't become green compliant to their satisfaction, whoever they are. Do you know anything about what I'm talking about?
I'm going to defer to Dave on that one because.
Are you familiar with it yet, Dave?
Yeah, I'd be curious where you heard that from. I will, now that I've heard it from you, I will check with some of my colleagues to see if there's, what's behind all that. I have not heard anything.
Well, they want leverage to do green right now. Everything's is tied to green. And fortunately, we have a lot of green incentives like the Tesla stuff. And so we might be okay, but I was just curious what really is. And it said that it was going to affect rural hospitals more than anything. So
right now we have a diesel generator and we're trying to get rid of that and change that to the cleaner burning propane. And we've got the diesel like you said, the Tesla batteries, which is it kind of doesn't even allow the generator to come on for a 6 or 8 hour.
But I was just seeing if there's any rules or regs that we could be aware of yet.
Yeah, I've not seen any myself.
Okay.
We definitely need to look into it because it would be a concern to me that I could easily see that coming down the road as the type of approach that they'd like to take.
Well,
the irony of it, the whole thing is the IGTs were created based on the formula that payments received on Medi-Cal payments grossly were below what the costs were to treat those patients. And now they're going to add more regulation in terms of green to increase the costs, which are already way more than they're paying us.
That's what's in the works right now. So it might not come to fruition, but it could. So if you could look into it.
Yeah, I'll definitely, you got my curiosity up on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
Gene, just so you're aware of one thing,
What's that?
obviously, you know my background from the trucking industry.
Yes.
A diesel generator today with a particulate filter and a DEF additive to it will burn cleaner on emissions than even a propane fire generator.
They might require straight solar or straight wind. And so
I'd
it's
love to see the power happen, but yes, sir, I agree.
hard to see what will happen.
All right, Mark.
Thanks, Fred.
Hey, I wanted to mention something to Mark. Not only, kudos on the skilled nursing facility, the 4-star rating, and then the follow-up with CMS saying, hey, good enough this year. We trust you. That's just phenomenal. But I had the occasion to go through an Undercover Boss episode. I presented myself to the ER last week and ended up being admitted for observation overnight. And so I spent several hours in the ER and then most of the rest of the next day in the acute care wing. And I must compliment everyone on the care that I received. I didn't identify myself as a board member. I thought, that may not be a good idea. So I'll just be a patient. And, there were the folks that I encountered in the ER, Dr. Burrows, Ricky and Roy, the nurses. And then there was a clerk, a ward clerk in there too. I didn't catch her name. But they were wonderful, wonderful care. They took good care of me, identified the problem I was having, and then, basically encouraged me to be admitted so that they could observe me for the next few hours. And then the transition from the emergency department to the acute wing was really smooth. All the 3 nurses in the middle, this was like 2 in the morning, and, the attention was appropriate and got me all hooked up to all the machines that needed to be hooked up to, and, installed into a bed, and basically took care of all my needs. And what a wonderful facility. I hadn't seen it from a patient perspective, and I got to. And I was so impressed with the care that we're providing. Our ER certainly needs to be remodeled. Looking forward to someday when we can build and open that new ER. But that's not a reflection on any of the staff. We're working on that. But I was so impressed with the care that I got, and I wanted to say thank you to everybody.
Ross, I've been in there several times, and every time I come back saying how awesome they are, with what they got to work with, they are just amazing. They are
Phenomenal. Yeah.
really good. So I agree 100%.
Thanks, Gene. The next morning, either when the morning shift came on, I think somebody recognized me, and then I got all kinds of attention. Every department came in to check and make sure everything was fine, and I had to kind of chuckle. But anyway, it was really good care, and I wanted you to know, Mark, publicly that I really think that you and your staff are doing an amazing job. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll relay the message.
Okay, so that brings us to the Chief Financial Officer report. Dave.
Thank you, Ross. We'll dive right in. And page 23 of your packet. We're going to look at the summary. We're now summarizing the completion of fiscal 2022 through June. And so these graphs are pretty much how we finished the fiscal year. We started out with the best ever financial strength index, 3.77. First time I've seen it over 3, which according to this chart puts us from good to excellent. So can't do any better than that. So it's a result of continued strong cash position and a 13-month favorable trend on operating surplus. So the next item, we're just going to go through each one of these graphs. We finished the year, nice bottom line, 4,446,000, and you can see the numbers from the last 3 years in the mid-2s. So very much better than the last 3 years at least. Moving over to ER, you can see fairly significant increase in ER visits. And when I heard about the compliments of how our staff treats our patients, it doesn't surprise me to see this graph because that's returning customers, because the confidence is there in the community that they get treated well, and you get return business. Repeat business is always a function of good quality service. So I think that's another way we can salute the staff there, is the nursing department in the ER continues to be received well, and people want to go there and feel confident coming back. The acute days ended up being almost exactly what it was the prior year, but better than the other years, 1463. And then the decline that we've continued to see in the skilled nursing, going from 18,000 down to 16,960. The overall takeaways. So we finished the year ahead of budget significantly, 3.7 million, and that was the variance to budget on the total surplus. So that was partly based on a low budgeted amount of 700,000. And by the way, the budget for the new year starting in July will be more like the 3.7 million total. So it's going to be a much higher bar that we have to hit as we start making presentations for months hitting in fiscal 23. So we are reporting the one probably biggest negative is the decline in cash. Was expected because of the lower IGTs this year and because of the higher construction. IGTs are expected to go up about 2.3 million because they did the 1 year dip in fiscal 22. Next year is expected to be about 2.3 million higher than it is in the year that was just completed. So that'll help a little, but keep in mind, construction is also going to go up a lot. So these nice balances that we've had, aren't going to stay that high just because we've got the need to be putting it into the master plan. The next thing that I wanted to highlight is 2 pages up on the liabilities, how low line item 1 accounts payable, 938,000. You can see less than half of what it was a year ago. So Barbara's done a great job in really making the accounts payable process more efficient and getting those bills processed and paid faster than we ever have before. So I think the creditor should feel pretty good about the fact that we're being very responsive to getting those bills paid quickly.
There it is.
The next brief picture would be the month of June. And you can see the current month where we had a major fall off on inpatient. The acute days was down about 50%. It was about half of what it normally is, 100% down. So you can see the percentage variance of 44%. That 500,000 negative here shows up as the total variance. So we were pretty much hitting budget on everything except for inpatient, but that's a lot of money less than budget, and that filters down into actual cash collected of about 130,000 less net patient revenue in 83. So the month was definitely affected by a much lower inpatient acute for the month of June. Since then, those numbers have come up in July, and part of it had to do with the COVID percentages being low in June and came up in July and August. So that resulted in a slight operating loss, but really from a big picture perspective, what made the month a real positive month was a big check that came in, I think the first week in June, which was 1.1 million on top of a check that came in a week earlier for 450,000 in the same program for COVID stimulus. Now, we decided to be a little bit conservative, not book all of that to the bottom line, but 938,000 shows up here on line 30 as income coming in that I'm estimating as the amount for sure that we'll be able to keep. Some of it is held back just in case we will have to pay some of it back, but we don't know that for a fact. But until we do more calculations, we're not going to completely show all that to the bottom line. The ironic part is because of the big numbers that hit non-operating, it makes it a little less meaningful to worry whether or not we're making money from operations or on total surplus, because money coming in on non-operating for COVID is really covering the expense that we have up here on the operating. So it really technically should or could be considered an operating revenue, but the accounting, generally accepted accounting principles does not allow us to show it above the line. So we have to show those COVID monies coming in below the line. So technically it kind of makes the operating looks not as good as it could, but clearly our bottom line showed a nice favorable budget variance of almost 800,000 due to that pleasant surprise we got when we got that $1 million check in.
Dave, since we're where we are, is this where you could talk about the employee retention credit and what the status is?
Well, you know, Gene, we've got that
whole separate
it's actually
agenda.
a separate agenda item.
Okay, I wasn't.
But it's a good thought. We'll do it. We'll follow the agenda as it's
Okay, all right.
as Heidi put it on the agenda. So we had a good month in IGTs as well. So that helped. The year-to-date picture, the main thing I wanted to point out is this change in operating expenses, 31,480 to a year ago. We had for 12 months, 30,883. That's only a 1.9% increase in fiscal 22 compared to fiscal 21. Some of the underlying things going on at this particular hospital is, as Carrie would remind you, is we have the need to be spending more and more money on IT because we really in many areas are not in the 21st century yet for computer systems. We benefit from that because we don't have a whole lot of purchase service costs. A lot of our IT expenses are low, but it's at the expense of perhaps less quality and less coverage in terms of ensuring that we don't get hacked for cyber and those kind of things. But the way we benefit is the CFO gets to brag about how we're keeping our expenses down. So it's a double-edged sword. The board is in the position to have to decide, how to measure the risk of having too much expenses versus the risk of not having the highest quality in certain areas like IT expenses. But I wanted to kind of put those concepts together for you as board members, as you face these decisions to approve. It's always going to be a trade-off. The more we are careful, the less problematic it's going to be. Obviously, hospitals that overspend in certain areas like IT because the numbers could get really, really high. When you completely run out of money, you no longer have a hospital. What good is it to have a good IT system if all of a sudden you have to you lose good staff because you can't pay them? You have other things that affect quality because you spent it all in one area at the expense of not spending it in other areas because of the concept of having a limited resources and not being able to having to appropriately prioritize where your resources need to be put. So it's an ongoing, fairly complex type of decision-making process that I have to be giving you a better context than what you've got so far to know these types of decisions that we bring forward. What's the cause and effect, and what are some of the benefits and why we have to do it, or what's the pros and cons. So I just wanted to just kind of digress a little bit when we talk about operating expenses. Yes, it's a good thing that our expenses have really been kept in check, 1.9% higher than last year. But at the same time, we may have some buildup of future inflation. I'll give you another really good example. Physician fees. We know that the physicians going forward aren't going to accept the types of terms that our current physicians have. So when all of a sudden they go to W-2s, I guarantee you this new number that you can see it went from 3.6 to 3.45. Well, it's going to go much, much higher in future years. So, but obviously you need to have good doctors on board. So these are quality issues. So it's always that trade-off. You know, you want to manage costs, but at the same time, we got a hospital to run and we want to have a good quality. So those are the types of things that you guys have to deal with when you make the decisions as board members.
Dave, you know, on the doctor situation with technology, and it's so much easier for doctors to operate now than it was in the past when it was just them and the nurse, no technology. And so life changes, right? Mark, I see you grinning. Without the computers in there, it would be a different world. I hope they're making it easier. But at any rate, I was just.
It's a double-edged sword. The computers do make it easier. However, what could make it harder unnecessarily is increased regulation, that we have a lot more information that the doctor, instead of spending time with the patient, is filling out that things that he considers to be, or she considers to be, unnecessary because it's a regulation. They need all kinds of extra paperwork that keeps them away from the bedside. But a computer will help expedite that a little bit. Unfortunately, these little critical access hospitals isn't going to have the sophistication that these big 500-bed hospitals have in terms of really making it easier for the doctor. So if we ever try to get there, we're going to be spending so much money. It may not. It's just one of those trade-offs that, yes, it's going to take a little bit more because our computer system is not going to quite be up to what it could be if we were a bigger hospital.
Dave, as you do all your calculations and thinking, our average age here is 59 years old. Mm-hmm. So we have people that are growing into being sick. So
yeah, and we clearly have those challenges, and we have to make sure that we offer the best possible quality, including good information systems.
That just means I'm above average, Gene.
Yes, you ain't gonna hear me say nothing negative about you, bud. So you're awesome.
As you can tell, I'm kind of going back and forth. I'm really not trying to make a point, except that I respect the role that the board is in, because these are tough decisions, and there's never it's never an obvious right or wrong decision when you move forward to try to spend money to improve quality. It's just a matter of making sure we do it in a responsible way. The IGT monies that came in on line 39 for the year was actually a favorable number. We didn't know whether or not we'd hit it, and we actually beat it by 300,000. So even though it was much lower this year, went from 13 million down to 9 million. We originally had budgeted only 8.7, so that was a good number. The only thing I have to show you on the next two pages is kind of a trend. If we try to tell a story of what happened in this fiscal year, it's kind of like we started out like a lion and came out like a lamb. The beginning of the fiscal year, if you look at line 6, gross patient revenue of 10,805,000, you can see that number falling the next 6 months. And then the last 6 months of the fiscal year, it fell even more down into the 8s. So We were definitely, last summer was our busiest time of the fiscal year, and we kind of limped into the end of the year. But despite all that, we still had a very good year based on the profit loss and how well we managed our expenses. So I believe that's, well, one more thing I wanted to touch on, the AR is, we spent a lot of time on that. That came down to 91, and I think in next month it went down even more. So we are starting to see some fairly significant improvements in AR now that they're fully staffed, and Deb has got some good systems in place. I still want to do some training, and we're still working on finding some outside help for them, but they are getting their numbers back down a little more reasonable in the days of gross AR. The cash number I made hot pink. This was my real highlight of the month because we weren't really expecting that when we got the 427 in on COVID stimulus last month. We thought that was what we were going to get, and then they sent us another 1,169,000 on that same program. So that was probably the best unexpected surprise we got for the month, was a favorable one of $1 million. So I think, yep, that's my report.
Thanks, Dave. Questions or comments?
Great job, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate your report as well. It's very in-depth, and I appreciate some of the concerns you have for us as a board moving forward, making financial decisions. I did want to say, so with the COVID stimulus money that came in, is that the reason why our financial ratio is so high at 3.77? Or one of the reasons?
One of the reasons, because that affects two numbers. It affects our total surplus and our total days of cash on hand. My guess, it would probably be in the high good section if we didn't have that extra million. It would be a little bit under 3. So yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, yeah, that's the first time I've ever seen our hospital district in the excellent category on financial strength. Whereas conversely, as you know, it's always been in negative 2.0 or something. So that's really good news. So
and again, that's the salute to you guys and how you've really managed the decisions and made good decisions about all the things that affect the bottom line.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay, and we will move on to old business. This is item F. The first item is retail pharmacy improvement update. And Gene, you asked for this to be on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not much of a point without Tim being here, because if you heard the last thing that Mark said in Tim's report, I'm working on it. That's all he ever says. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working. I'm so sick of hearing him say I'm working on it. He's been doing it for 2 years now. And it was supposed to have been done. He didn't come back to the board and said, well, I decided since we got a new pharmacist, we're not going to do what the board said. He just didn't do nothing. So there's not a lot to discuss right now because he's not here and can't answer for himself.
Okay, well, we can carry this over to the next meeting if you'd like.
If we can.
Okay. Heidi, can you make that happen, please?
Will do.
Thank you. And then item 2, maybe the same situation since Tim's not here, but the follow-up on the referral regarding the urgent care.
There's not much, like you said, we owe it to the community. Everyone wants an urgent care here. It works better. And if we have one, and if, I personally don't think it'll hurt the emergency room at all. They're awesome down there. And what people stay up here and get referred to the emergency will probably end up doing more business, but we need to look at it. And every time I talk to Tim, or it's, well, it'll hurt the emergency room. It'll hurt the emergency room. We owe it to the community to do what's best for them. And if we can't run the hospital properly, then maybe we should let somebody else run it.
David, you had any comment or any contact with Whitfley on this? I know that's what, I thought that's the action Tim was going to take.
Yeah, I had about a 15, 20-minute conversation with, his name is Wes Thu. He needed a little more context than what I was giving him, and he told me he was going to call me back. He must have got busy. That was about a week and a half ago. And I need to call him back because we did start the process. I sent him a formal request to give us a proposal on how much it would cost. And so the ball's kind of in his court.
Okay.
Russ, the other thing on the pharmacy, back up just a little, with all those banks getting rid of their drive-ups, people don't want to go inside our pharmacy. There are sick people there. I don't even want to go in there anymore because, I'm old enough, I get sick, heck, I might not get unsick. So even those tube things where they send it out, we could do that. And the people could pull in there, get it and back out and go. It wouldn't be a drive-through, but that way the person inside wouldn't have to go out and be exposed, or the person in the car wouldn't have to be exposed. So, there's different options, but we just keep working on it. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we can't just hand deliver the things out to the car. It seems like a very simple thing to do and implement. I'm not sure why that hasn't.
Do we collect money out there at the car? Do we do it with a card? How do we do that?
I would think it'd be paid in advance. You pay with the card over the phone and we'll bring it up.
Our current software in there won't let us do that right now, I don't think. That's why we're waiting on this new software. That's what Suda was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a module in our new system that we're buying. We didn't include it yet because there's no need to pay for something we don't have up and running yet, but there's a module that is in there that allows for delivery.
Okay.
And Tim did say he wanted this up and running by the end of the year. So he's given us 4 months to get it done. So.
Well, as good as you are, that's a long time.
We'll deliver your house first. How's that, Gene?
It'll be easy.
Okay, Heidi, if you could follow up and carry these 2 items for our next agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Russ.
Thanks. Okay, item G, then new business employee retention credit. We'll turn it back to Dave.
Okay, I'm going to show the contract. And we could have Scott chime in if there's anything that he'd like to say, because we ended up improving quite a bit of the language to our benefit. Because as you know, some of these contracts, the way they're worded is always in the vendor's favor and never reciprocal. So Scott did a good job in taking care of a lot of that detail. The main financial deal had to do with the fact that they originally wanted 20% of a contingency, and that number went down to 10% here, and that was my main contribution. Actually, I give Tim credit for that because it was a result of a conversation he had with one of their former clients who told us they were able to negotiate it down, so we had the confidence to do the same thing. And so it's one of these situations that they gave me all the rules. I went back and crunched the numbers, and lo and behold, using some creative accounting, I found 1 quarter that we qualified, and then we automatically qualify for 2 quarters if we get 1 quarter. And the calculations is about $1.6 million that we have coming to us once we submit this application and we get approved, because we had 1 quarter that went down more than 20% to the same quarter 2 years earlier. The before COVID and after COVID effect of our revenues fit their formulas in the way I put all the numbers in the boxes that made it work for us. So it's not 100% guarantee. I think I didn't see any language that would prevent us to do it the way I did it. So I think we should be in good shape, but I felt instead of trying to submit this ourselves, I really did not have the confidence to do that. And I wanted to have a firm that ends up being in the role of fighting for us in case there's any audits. They have the expertise to really fight for us and make sure we don't have to pay the money back.
Dave, if there is an audit, if in those numbers that you provided, if those aren't valid after an audit, could they come after us for 10% of what they could have gotten? You know,
because all this is so new, I would only be guessing and giving you an answer. All we know is up till now, there hasn't been any hospitals that got into trouble on this particular program. So it's the clearly from the political side, the politicians have really wanted to help hospitals on retention credits because we're in the first line of having to deal with this COVID, and they want to see us give employees as much as we can give them. So on top of that, the state of California now has put together a retention credit grant that is going to go to the hospitals, but it'll be a direct pass through to the employee. So for whatever we decide to be the percentage of how much we give on this particular program, in theory, it could be a little bit less because the state is also going to match that money that we give the employees as part of a bonus.
now what is their system? Is their system the way I want to see it done, and that's a flat amount per employee?
Yes, the state thinks a lot like you do in
Oh,
terms
cool.
of how they.
I don't know if I like that, but
I've decided over the last couple of weeks, I had a lot of opinions on this after talking with Sarah. There's all kinds of reasons to do it different ways, and I'm going to kind of turn that over to the board and Tim. But I do recommend that we really move as quick as we can to try to give our employees some relief financially.
do we need a motion to approve this here, Russ? Or
We do, yeah, we have to approve this contract.
can I make a motion that we approve it?
Yes. Who seconded?
No, when I interfered.
Oh,
Sorry. Heidi, is this the version of the agreement that was reviewed by Tim and I after August 4th?
I believe so.
She asked me to send her the most recent. To be honest with you, Scott, I'm not sure if this is it or does it look like it's not?
It looks like it's not.
I had trouble finding off my email, so I might have sent you the wrong one, Heidi.
Yeah, so we did, we agreed with Think on the final terms and conditions. Section 2 limitation of damages here in the version in the packet is not what we agreed to. I think if the board authorizes the contract, authorizes Dave or Tim to sign it, subject to the final language that we agreed to, I'm okay with that. I just want to make sure that the final version has all the right wording.
Could you summarize the changes you made at the end that aren't here?
Yeah, so in section 2, the limitation of damages ran one way. They were all in favor of Think. And so we changed it so that it was mutual and the district got the same limitations except for any fees that were owed by the district under the contract.
Okay.
Can I amend it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm done.
Russ, can I amend it to the changes that need to be made that Scott has referred to?
Yep, thanks, Gene.
Thanks for the catch, Scott.
So we do have a motion. Is there a second for basically we would be authorizing Tim to sign the final version of this subject to the revisions that staff and our council have identified.
I'll second, Ross.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Any other discussion? Any member of the public wishing to be heard? Okay, John, your vote? Uh-oh, John's frozen. We'll
John's
go back
frozen.
to John. Fred, your vote?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes,
And I'm a yes, and we'll list John as technical difficulty. So a 4-0 vote. All right, we'll move to director's comments on items not appearing on the agenda. And we'll start with John. No, we won't. All right, we'll start with Catherine.
I really don't have any other than to thank everybody for the hard work they're doing and us moving forward. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Catherine. Jean?
I just would like to apologize. I sound like I'm always whining and complaining, and I really don't mean to. But at any rate, thank you for patience that all of you have, including Scott. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Fred?
Dave, I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work. By breaking everything down in the way we do, line item by line item, it allows us to make decisions in certain areas that we normally wouldn't address.
Great, I'm
It's
glad
brought a
it's
few
working.
things to my light on this report that we can address at a further date, but I just want to thank you for all of your dedication.
Thank you. And you have my permission, because sometimes I think I do what Chet used to do, is I think sometimes I get on soapboxes and start rambling, so you can cut me off next time.
No problem.
Your financial reports are always right on target, so thank you, Dave. The only thing I wanted to add is Dave has provided me some information on some of the benchmarks and measurements that we've used, and he's going to be providing that to all the board members. In terms of board education, it's really good. And there's one of the sheets in our financial packet contains those numbers, and this is basically the Rosetta Stone that explains what those measurements are about and gives us a better context to seeing how we're doing financially. So look forward to that. That'll be coming out to each board member. And again, my appreciation and thank you for a job well done to the entire staff, not only for the 4 stars, but in being able to avoid CMS audit and taking really good care of your patients like I've seen firsthand. So thank you to everybody. Much appreciated.
It looks
And
like
John?
we have John back.
Is
Yeah,
John back?
sorry, Ross. My phone froze. I was a yes on that last vote. I apologize.
Well, I'm glad you're back. We are at board member comments, and we've just come to you. Do you have any comments to make?
Yeah, just to reiterate what I said earlier in the meeting. I mean, the fact that we didn't have a SNF survey, that's great news. My hats off to the staff for all their hard work. Dave, once again, thank you for the detailed financial statements. We look like we're in pretty good shape, even though we got, some things to work on in the near future from a financial standpoint, but things are looking really good. So I do appreciate the in-depth report. And also, Ross, I'm glad that you're okay from your visit to the ER. Recently, we had a really close family friend who was also in the ER. He had injured his arm, but he told me that he had a really excellent experience in the ER and that the staff was impeccable. So I just wanted to mention that also in my director's comments.
Thank you, John. Okay, then we will adjourn to closed session where the board will discuss 2 items, and we will report back after our closed session if anyone cares to hang on in the waiting room.
Ross. So let me just say that we do not have anything for Quen because it's in mediation right now.
Okay.
So it was put on in case we had something to update the board with. The DoorDash Chowbotics, is there anyone there who has any more information on this to share with the board?
Mark does.
Yeah, I can certainly chime in on that one. They apparently DoorDash.
Sorry. I just didn't know if someone was there to explain it to the board. So then that will be the closed session item. I just didn't know if we needed to go in.
Understood. Okay, so we will just hear the second item then in closed session, and we'll report back when that discussion is over. Thank you. Okay, we have reconvened from closed session, and we'll turn to our council to give the closed session report.
Sure. In closed session, council and the board discussed a settlement agreement with Chowbotics, and DoorDash. Upon motion by Director Park, seconded by Director Blythe, the board voted unanimously to approve the settlement, and no other items were discussed.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, with that, folks, then we are adjourned. We will meet again in our committees and our building and planning committee meeting as a special meeting for the board in the next couple of weeks. Until then, stay cool. It's hot August, these hot August nights.
Amen. Be
Thanks,
safe.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.